Thank you. Thank you for coming. I have coworkers who have coming. I'm honored. Keynote speaker at PyCon. I'm honored. So my name is Greg, and I'm really grateful that you're here. And I wanted to make this time valuable and share with you about what I'm learning. This was the original title, the subtitle of my talk, was how I'm using tech to ease the suffering of my dying father who has ALS. And as I prepared this talk, I found that I actually should change it to how my attempt to build tech to ease the suffering of my dying father has changed my life forever, and how it will change yours. I want to give you some background. This is my dad on the left. This is me as a little kid. This is the year that we dethroned James Kruger from king of the church basement rubber band rocket league. I took first place that year. And 30 years later, still rub it in James's face. And my dad helped me build that rocket. Let's fast forward to Christmas 2015. My dad is a good man, and his dad was a hard man and drank a lot and lived hard and died young when I was a little kid. And I always thought, well, my dad will die at a very old age because he doesn't do those things. But Christmas 2015, we went out in a family on a gift that, what do you give a man who already has everything? You give him an Amazon Alexa. And I feel like other parents, I gave my aging father that. And it was good because he'd had some trouble recently. He had a little drop foot. His fingers were had some trouble gripping things. And we think it was like a pinched nerve. And he had actually surgery on his neck to free up that nerve. He had a couple tumbles because his balance was off. But he's an old man, so I mean, not really that old. But I thought this is normal aging stuff. Well, that summer we found out after things got worse and the surgery didn't help that he had ALS, which is amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. It's characterized by amyotrophy, which is the atrophy of muscles. It's often grouped with MS, which is another autoimmune disease. It's similar, but it's different. And ALS, if you know about it, is made famous by the Ice Bucket Challenge and by Stephen Hawking, who was the oldest known survivor of ALS when he passed away at 76 years old last March. Random fact about this, the Ice Bucket Challenge, it raised $115 million for ALS. It was directly helped the research and discovery of the NEK1 gene, which is thought to be the most common gene that causes ALS. Unfortunately, that's only in 3% of ALS cases, so there's a lot of work to be done, but it really went to a good cause. That summer, we rented a cabin, and we talked and we cried as a family. This is my dad up here on the yellow at the top. Anyone who, you may be in this room because you are also have someone in your life that has a disability or something along these lines, and you are familiar with the feeling of dying 1,000 deaths. If my dad had left work and forgot to look left and got hit by a bus, it would be this one-time tragic moment, and then we'd begin this period of mourning. But when you have a disease like this, it takes slowly, and you never get to fully mourn until you're sort of cracking up at work like my coworkers, and you're just I can't even, and it's very difficult because you don't know how to mourn this stuff, and you have 1,000 mournings. When he told us, he was fine. Then he had a cane. Then he went to a wheelchair, then an electric wheelchair, or then a walker, a cane to a walker, to a wheelchair, to an electric wheelchair. Here's a video of my daughter just loves riding with him.
I think we're done. Yeah.
More.
Oh, boy.
One of the small deaths is that he can't do this anymore because he has to have a different control system now, as he is unable to move his hand. And this is one of the 1,000 small deaths that that you have to give up. I felt powerless in the face of disease. You may feel that way. 4 months before he had told us he had this disease, I'd never written a line of code in my life. I had a totally different degree. I was changing careers and didn't know how to help directly, right? So what can I do when you feel powerless, right? I didn't know what tech to build. I didn't know what I did. I felt powerless, right? Well, what happened was that one Amazon Alexa turned into like 6, and then I, like, with home automation stuff, because my dad couldn't pull a light switch anymore and was having trouble flicking a switch, and he needed, and so when Alexa came out, and people were like, why would anybody need to use their voice to control TV? I just push a button. Well, there are people who desperately need this. It's not just like a cool thing you can show off to your friends. It's a desperate, life-giving thing that they can turn their own lights on. This is what I found was this trifecta of people involved: family and friends, the individual, and caregivers. So I thought, what can I build? As I grew in my skills, what could I build? The first thing, this is where my mom is, right? The family and friends and caregivers, and sometimes they're not the same thing. I forgot to add in my background, I spent almost 10 years working in the disability field with United Cerebral Palsy, whatnot, and so now what I had helped on the externally, I was in the caregiver group. I was now suddenly in this other group, and ALS is partially genetic, but we don't know, and it's very, very rare. It's very rare even if your dad has it. I don't know if one day I'll sit in all 3 of these, which is it's a scary thought. But this is where my mom is, and I wanted to know, how can I build something that could help her? She's a bit of a stoic woman. She's here, she's laughing. We bought her a tie that I managed to track down on eBay, which is the ugliest, like, vote tie. It was from the 70s. When my dad met her, he was wearing it. We found it and gave it to him on their anniversary, and this is them. She's not one to ask for help. Maybe your moms are also like this. And so what I decided to do was, it's hard to pick up a phone and make a call and admit or say, or even it's hard for everyone. And so I wanted to build something that said, if you just muster enough courage to push a button, like, we will call you or we will come, right? This was originally connected to a ESP8266 chip, which runs MicroPython. It was wired up on the inside of this box here. And so it was you could push it, and we would get via Twilio text message me and closest her friends or whoever she wanted on the list. I changed this design for several reasons. One is, if you've ever seen The Box with Cameron Diaz, it's very similar looking. This is a sci-fi horror movie. People are going to ask, what is this crazy box? And they'll just do this, right? And so I decided to, it was originally this. It was overcomplicated. Soon isn't good enough. So I'm going to move a little faster. AWS has the IoT button, and this makes everything much simpler. Security is taken care of for you. And this is the simple layout. You write this in Python, and it makes a REST call to Twilio, and I get a text message. I'll show you what it kind of looks like. It's going to look like this. Karen could use some encouragement. Would you give her a call? Reply yes, then call Karen. Yes, thank you. You're a good friend. There's all automated here. And she'll get a call. What I'm building into it next is learning, where it says, oh, this is a time where she normally struggles. Tuesday evenings are often a hard time for Karen. Please reply to the message with a note of encouragement that I'll send her later. Love you, Karen. You're doing a great job. Thank you. I'll send this message to Karen later. If you'd like to remind her to call Karen, check reminder. The truth is, soon isn't good enough. And ugly is okay. In fact, these are some of the things I learned. Help is needed now. The vulnerable need security in our devices that we build. Ugly is okay. Don't spend a million years working on the best UI ever. If it works, and it works well, and it's secure, you can send it out to help people. Let me talk about my dad. Actually, he's not in the caregiver. I apologize. That arrow was wrong. He's in the individual there. This is a quote. He said, "I feel like my world is closing around me, Greg. Here's why. You're in the house. You can't leave necessarily because of your chair and whatnot. And here's the problem. Amazon built their Echo devices to make money, believe it or not. Spoiler alert. And they don't interface with certain companies they don't have contracts with. So, for example, if you'd like to watch Sling on your TV, Amazon Alexa, which controls the Amazon Fire, which controls the TV, it might not work because there's contracts that work out and things like that. So I started looking up a system on what to build. And so this, I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but this is a Raspberry Pi attached to an old PlayStation View or Eye camera. And this is a very cheap way to do this because this is actually a array microphone that is phenomenal. And I talked to a person from the ALS Foundation just recently. I said, what if we built a voice assistant that was specifically geared toward those with disabilities? What if its main purpose was to actually help and not to sell Amazon products? Doing that was with Snips AI. If you've ever heard of it, it is a privacy-focused voice assistant that runs entirely locally on the Raspberry Pi. It doesn't make any calls out to any APIs for any natural language processing or anything like that. It's pretty amazing. I don't have time for a demo. We can do it later. But with this, you'll see here, this is the Amazon Alexa. It has these 8 microphones. This you can get for $7.99, and it does pretty much just as good a job. It's amazing. You can connect this to Snips AI and write things in Python. With this family, with Snips, with the camera, with the Raspberry Pi, and with the Linux infrared remote control, I can copy remote control commands and then issue them via voice, say like turn volume up, and it will just send an IR command. It doesn't. There's no contracts with the company. It just does it, right? I'm trying to hack my way through that. This is a work in progress. I said that. I said, what if we built this and its goal was to not? And I was saying, what if its goal was not to sell Amazon products? This is a quote from the director of Cleveland ALS. She said, if you could build that, you would change people's lives. Now, here's where I'm going to pull a fast one for you and divert this entire talk, because why would she say that? And here's why she would say that. This industry is desperate for disruption. The technology for disabilities industry. And let me give you an example, right? And I have some questions. Do you believe in the intrinsic value of every human being? That no matter what you do and who you are and where you come from or how you identify yourself, whatever, nothing makes you valuable other than the fact that you exist and as a human being. Another question, do you believe money is more important than human rights? Everyone would go, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Well, I'm telling you, and this is how I want to change your life too, this industry is in shambles because money is more important than human rights. What is a basic human right? I believe the ability to speak your voice and to the thoughts and feelings of your own heart out into the world is a human right. It's being taken away from people because they cannot afford it, this technology. There's been all sorts of cuts. I have a list of different government cuts that are happening, right? And the government gives you a certain amount of money for devices. Let's say it's $12,000. So what do companies do? Charge $11,000 because they know this is what how much that's available to them. There's 2 types of systems, unaided systems. You don't need to do anything but your own body to use an unaided system. An aided system uses some sort of tool or device like a button or a shifter or something like that. This is a quote from Gandhi. He said, a nation's greatness is measured by how it treats its weakest members. And here's a quote from a much less honorable person, Heather Bresch. She said, blame the broken system, not me. This is when EpiPen raised its prices from $45 to like $700 some dollars. What system was she talking about? Here's another example. There's no money. Senior Living CEO gives himself a pink slip to push community into the black. Here is a device. This is an augmented communication device.
This device is the TechScan 8 Plus. It's a multi-level speech generating device that uses recorded messages via real voice and can be used as either a scanning device or as a standard speech generating device. The overlays can be created using the Tech Talk 8 template, which can be located within the BoardMaker templates link. In the form of words, you can do phrases and or sentences. The device comes with 8 levels, which permit the user to record and play back 64 distinct messages. A unique overlay can be created for each level. Overlays are typically topic related and interchangeable. The text speak records messages up to 4.5 seconds per cell or button, 9 seconds for the extended time model.
4.5 seconds for 64 phrases. If you've done the math, that's 4.8 total minutes of audio available for this machine to record. To which I would reply, what year is it? Do you want to know how much this device costs? Here's a button that gives children with disabilities or learning disabilities instructions line by line. You push it, and it plays a recording. You push it, it plays a recording. You literally name the files like 1.wave, 2.wave, right? And it'll just play it through, right? This button is an affordable $20. I'm just kidding. It's $200 for a button that plays audio. This is a device called the Megabee. You hold it up. It is literally extremely low tech. You hold it up in front of someone's face like this. It's got on the back side these same things, and then you look. The person looks at it and blinks like that's their desired letter, and you just push the colors like this, and then over a course of like trial and error, you do the math. It prints out like my name is June. This is it here, and this device is $1,828. And don't blame me, blame the system, right? Let's just go through. This is a smart speak. It's basically a speak and say. Here's another one. This is an industry that is comfortable selling technology as antiquated as the 1979 speak and spell for the money that you would charge for an iPad or more. How do families buy this technology? Well, I'll tell you how. The National Multiple Sclerosis Society website says you check insurance coverage, then you generally pay a 20% copay. You organize the information required for reimbursement, such as the nature and onset of your disabilities. This is a checklist, right? Employment history, family gross income, and monthly expenses. You prepare a justification statement, which is how do you do that? You tell your healthcare professional to ask the society for appeal letters for insurance toolkit. The toolkit contains letters to meet standard requirement for insurance claims. Then you check your statewide assisted program, and then you connect with the program in your state to see if they offer legal or advocacy services. You have to sue for one? Like, that's how expensive this is. Have you heard of the Shirky principle? Institutions will try to preserve the problem to which they are the solution. I met with one of the directors of the Summit County Developmental Disability Board, and I said, why? It was kind of like, I'm all fired up about this. Like, why would they do this? Why would they charge what they are charging for what? And he goes, Gary, I'm just going to stop you. I'm just going to stop you. The reason why this is happening is because as a society, we simply don't care about these people, which was real and raw. Later, he asked me if it was possible to upgrade some of the people under their care, their devices, to see if there was a way I could upgrade them because they're running on Windows XP. You might be getting angry now, and I don't care because the world is changed by your example, not by your opinion. Children in third world countries do not eat your thoughts and prayers, it's what we do that matters, not how we feel. Which is why I started something that I'm working on. This paperwork is in to get as a nonprofit. This is called PAVELLA. It's a PAVELLA project. PAVELLA is a word that means servant. And I was like, I want to cause some chaos in this industry. And people were like, well, what's your plan? And like the Joker in Dark Knight, do I look like a guy who has a plan? I don't really have a plan. Like, I don't have a plan. I don't have it all worked out. I don't have FDA approval. We can build better than this, right? Here's a button. This is remember that button that I talked about, the IoT button. This one is made by AT&T. It's 30 bucks, 1,500 presses or 3 years. It comes with cell phone service. This is my first project to build something like this so we can roll this out to people who are diagnosed with disability and give it to their families. We need to give people a voice. The ALS Foundation has eye-gaze systems. Eye-gaze systems track your iris, and you can look, and it'll, kind of like the predictive typing on your keyboard, it will tell you where, you can write out sentences and whatnot, right? But they have them for loan. Do you know why they have them for loan? Because they're $14,000 a piece, and they are a tablet computer with a camera on top. Your company that you work for might use retina tracking technology to see if people are watching their ads. This is the break between these this industry and I don't know, 30 years later, right? And I get that technology costs a lot. I mean, when you're building it and whatnot, but some of this technology is so old and so antiquated, it's time for open source to come for them. Let's talk about giving people a voice. This is Lyrebird. Lyrebird is amazing. They ask you to record things. This one was a little awkward. My peer review was probably taxing for mommy and daddy. I had to say this out loud into the camera at work. Audio recording. No joke, and I did it like over 100 times or something like that. Plug in here. So let me play you, let me show you this. Okay, here we go. Let's see here. You are wearing a volunteer tag and a shirt that looks like Superman. This is my voice.
You are wearing a volunteer tag and a shirt that looks like Superman.
We're starting to open source technology. This is Lyrebird. They're starting to give people their voice back.
One of the hardest things about ALS is losing the ability to speak. I don't want to sound like a computer. I want to sound like me.
So to give Pat his voice back, we actually partnered with a tech firm called Lyrebird, who specializes in recreating the human voice from only 2 to 3 hours of audio samples.
The unique thing about Pat's case was that he didn't have recordings to work with, so we had to go on the internet and find all his speeches and all his interviews and basically take the audio from those. I guess in a sense it's really because Pat, he gave his voice to the ALS community that we're now able to give him his own voice back. We can't wait to hear what he's going to say.
Time to say goodbye to this computerized voice.
It's a strange feeling saying your first words a second time.
Oh my God. Unbelievable. Wow.
It's like you don't even realize how powerful, how personal, and just how unique your voice really is. Until it's taken from you. My voice was how I fought back against the very disease trying to take it from me. Sorry, I'm not going out that easy. I will make sure my voice is heard again. Guess who's back, bitches?
It's not just Lyrebird, it works in TensorFlow.
We also need a small plastic snake and a big toy frog for the kids.
This is the original recording. Here's after with the one sample. This is what she did not say.
Learn about setting up wireless network configuration.
Here's after 100 samples.
Learn about setting up wireless network configuration.
We have an industry that is in, to say it's in shambles would make it, is saying that it's not our fault, or that it's not the industry's fault for charging people incredible amounts of money for this. It's not in shambles. It is egregiously taking advantage of people. My dad has insurance, but I worked with a lot of people that don't. And so now we are literally, as a society, in 2018, facing a decision where we say, if I had to give you a decision, I said, would you rather not move or not talk? And you'd go, I don't want to choose either. And I go, you have to make that choice, because it's 2018, and we won't pay for your $14,000 eye gaze. Like, we're egregiously violating people's human rights, right? My dad's not one of them. He can afford this, in all honesty. He has a great job. But it doesn't matter. You have intrinsic value, even if you'd never worked a day in your life. And we can do this with open source. I'll end with this. This is my new website, PAVELLA.org. I have a GitHub that it's barely got some things on. I mean, I'm going to push some stuff up to, maybe some blogs. You can meet some people. Go out and hang out with someone with disabilities if you don't know someone. Soon isn't good enough. People with disabilities need the tools you can build, but soon isn't good enough. They need to know that they aren't forgotten, and they need your friendship, and you need theirs. Pascal said, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. We do that, and we sit quietly with people who are suffering, right? These companies will hear the drums in the distance, right? And the drums in the distance are a sound of a group of developers and individuals with love in their hearts, because they've spent this time with love in their hearts, and with passionate about open source and passionate about human rights, and who love deeply those who need it most. And because with open source, with Python, that we're all passionate about, and with this love in our hearts, we can change the world legitimately, in real ways, giving people. The ALS Foundation said within an hour of Cleveland, there's 400 people living with ALS right now. 400. And there's 5,000 people a year diagnosed with it. But there's so much more that we can do. And with this, we can change the world. Thank you. Thanks. Good. Thank you. Feel free to come up and play with our buttons, and I have, or you can type and make me say things, if you would like. But thank you again, and I might put some forums on the website. We can build some stuff together, and just what about a camera that sits on the door of your grandma's house who's struggling with some Alzheimer's stuff that lets her know who's at her door, and if it doesn't recognize the face, the doorbell doesn't ring. That'd be sweet and super easy, sort of. I mean, open source stuff, right? So, all right, thank you, and I'll be around.